Today on FAS TV, we are with the team at Arable Scotland, which took place at the beginning of July at Balruddery farm, and where the focus of discussions was on innovating for the future. Across the day, there were 3 arable conversations which focused on key topics affecting the industry, including adapting to the changing climate, staying profitable on lower inputs, and the changing policy landscape.
I'm Fiona Burnett from SRUC, and we're here today at Arable Scotland, so a collaborative event between SRUC, AHDB and the James Hutton Institute, and pleased to have the involvement of the Farm Advisory Service. So the theme of the event was innovating for the future, with the idea that we have really urgent challenges for the arable industry. So we're facing a changing climate. This season, 2023, has been really quite indicative of seasons we will have going forward. We've got a biodiversity crisis, and we're losing a whole raft of tools in some of the pesticides that we're losing, and we're also in a period of fairly rapid policy change. So that's the theme of the event, with lots of new techniques, new machines, new varieties and new crops that we're hoping to guide you around in this update from the event.
I'm Andrew Moyer, I'm Scottish Quality Crops Chairman. I think the SQC thing is it's a wonderful thing to show from the grower's perspective, to show our buyers just how much we can do to help them in their businesses. We've got the IPM plan, which all our audits take into place, the biodiversity plan, which all our audits are taken into place. So that gives our buyers the assurance that they're getting a quality product that is being raised in a very good environmental manner, and will give them the kudos to go forward to sell their products, knowing that they have got a product that's been very well looked after and audited. We're here today, we're promoting it, but I think we're probably not, the communications between the businesses that we audit maybe could be better, obviously should be better, but I think we're trying to do that. We have a new managing director, fairly new, just over a year now, that Teresa's been in post, and she's doing a great job in promoting to the whole industry, not only just the growers, but to the buyers as well. So we're getting it out there. We've got stakeholders like SRUC that are integral into how they get that message across to the grower and to the buyer.
Hi, my name's Neil Havis. I work in the Carbon Crop and Soil Group at SRUC in Edinburgh. So we're working on integrated pest management programs to produce crops. So integrated pest management means you take the holistic approach, so you think about everything that will impact the production of the crop, going from the tillage system to the inputs. And obviously an important input to any crop production is the crop protection program that you put in. So looking at plant health, thinking about plant health, we're looking at things like biostimulants. There's a lot of discussion about what value they can have to make the crop more resistant to stress and healthier. We're looking at resistant elicitors, things that elicit the defence response in the plant, make the plant more resistant to disease, and looking at biologicals. There's a lot of interest and a lot of investment from the big agrochemical companies in biological products that can help control disease. They're seen as more environmentally friendly and more sustainable in the long run. And it's probably the way that crop protection is going to go in the years to come, trying to incorporate all of these into a programme. Some of these products will need to be going to the programme early on, some will be used later on. It just depends on the disease you're trying to control and the crop that you're growing. We've done a lot of work on the use of elicitors. So these are products that you put on early on in the crop growth. The defence response is initiated and you can cut your fungicide usage by 50%. That's 50% from the recommended dose, which is usually a half a recommended dose from the manufacturer. So you're down to a quarter of the recommended manufacturer's dose. So that has potential cost benefit to the farmer and also an environmental benefit. You're using less pesticide. We lost our most effective multi-site chlorothalonil in 2020, so we still have a couple of registered products, but there's a lot of interest in alternative multi-sites. The ones we do have are still under threat of possibly losing their registration. So things like an elemental sulfur you can spray onto the crop, you can actually see it leaves a residue, but it's particularly effective in controlling pathogens which land on the leaf or the ear after you've applied it.
I'm Julian Bell. I work for AgriCalc, which is connected with SRUC, and I am a principal business consultant. Farmers are so conscious of the cost of inputs, the way that we've had the incredibly high fertiliser prices, and there's interest in new techniques for using the most of other crops to reduce inputs. I think the critical thing that the industry's got to address is profitability. So where can you reduce inputs and maintain profitability? It's the most challenging part of it, because clearly if you can cut costs, fantastic. What's it going to do to your output? So it's that balance between using inputs efficiently and cutting them where you can. So this is really the challenge. It's not just let's farm with less inputs, because on a simplistic basis you can have less output. And most inputs are actually pretty cost effective in the end. So that doesn't mean there's a lot of room for improvement, but certainly on the farm, that's not to be forgotten. They're there for a reason. I think that is all about knowing what more information about the farm, the crops, how are they performing. We've got spatial technology now, we can yield mapping, you can identify those areas that just aren't performing. Now, you might well be able to do something about it. If it's some intrinsic issue that you can't really improve, then you are putting inputs onto something that's just not delivering. So, that technology we have now provides insights that were not necessarily so obvious before. This is the harder thing to work out on paper, is the choice between maximising your output, which tends to lead you down the high input route, versus longer term. Now, a classic thing is, in terms of rotations, is increasing the diversity of cropping. Now, that may possibly, in the short term, leave you worse off, because you're going to have to lose some of the wheat crops, for instance, which are usually high yielding, high output. And say beans could be grow more beans. Now, beans, the yield is not particularly high. The market premium isn't sufficient to compensate. But they have a lot of advantages. Obviously, they can make their own nitrogen. They can leave a good conditions and more nitrogen for the following crop, so that can save fertiliser there. And also they can reduce the workload at harvest, because they're late harvest, as long as it's not too late. It can certainly ease the pressure. Sowing time's different, so it can reduce the peak time in terms of labour and machinery. And actually, those fixed costs, labour and machinery, are some of the highest on the farm. So although on a gross margin basis, beans don't always look great, if you can take into account the rest of the rotation, the rest of the costs, they can pay off. The other part of it, of course, if over time more diversity can improve your soil structure, reduce the weeds and pest burden, give you an alternative to oilseed rape, then when you start notching those costs up over 5 to 10 years, you can really potentially see a return. But that needs a bit of a leap of faith and an ability to look further and try and understand how that's going to work.
I'm Christina McBride, and I'm a PhD student at Lancaster University and the James Hutton Institute. Here I'm showcasing my project, where I'm looking at different combinations of cover crop species and how they can improve soil associated ecosystem services. So agricultural production is currently threatened by the variable rainfall patterns that we're experiencing. So we're experiencing more floods, more droughts, more soil erosion. So one of the possible solutions to that is to increase plant diversity, cover crop diversity. And by doing that, hopefully you can improve soil function. And a diverse rooting system, which is what I have here, with a grass, a legume and brassica, they can together retain more soil and retain more nutrients. And therefore, when a water erosion event happens, they don't lose soil and nutrients as much. That would hopefully, in the end, help the farmer manage their soil strategy the soil management strategy better and become more resilient to variable rainfall patterns.
I'm Stuart Jackson. I'm the Head of Technical Services for UPL in the UK and Ireland, and I'm here today at Arable Scotland in Balruddery. At UPL we have a philosophy of developing and trying to move towards a more natural type of plant protection products, and we have a whole range of biological products in the portfolio, and our research is about 70% towards natural plant protection or biological products. At the show today, what we're demonstrating is 2 biological fungicides. They're both fully registered through CRD for use in cereals, and they're also supported by the OF&G Association as well. We have a product called, based on an active laminarin, which has different brand names. It has the brand name of Iodus, Vasiplant and Laminone, and it's positioned at T0 in winter wheat. And laminarin is an elicitor, so it essentially tricks the plant into thinking it's under attack from disease and gets the plant to respond to that application, and by that it essentially triggers its own genetics and combats the disease itself. And what we found by using it at T0 is you get benefits throughout the life cycle of the plant. So it's not just a short burst of disease control for 2 to 3 weeks at T0, it lasts throughout the season. That came onto the market in 2020, and since 2020 we know that more and more growers are using the product. There's an increasing interest in using a biological fungicide, and we've had no negative responses from growers who've used it, only positive responses. In addition to laminarin, we also sell a product called Thiopron, and Thiopron is a liquid formulation of sulphur. And sulphur is a fungicide that's been around for many, many years, and essentially it's still performing in exactly the same way. It's still of benefit in the programme, and we promote it as an alternative multi-site in the disease programme. So it's there to support the, if you like, the azole chemistry, the SDHI chemistry and the QII chemistry in terms of its activity. It's got inherent activity on septoria and mildew, but also net blotch, rinco and ramularia. So it's a very supportive product, positioned at T1 and again at T2 as a multi-site to help with resistance management. But overall, definitely we're getting more and more farmers ask about stepping away or thinking of doing things in a different way and considering different options. So there is definitely more and more interest in using alternative fungicides and biological type products in their programs.
I'm Alan Johnson. I work for King's Crops. I'm the Scottish Technical Advisor. King's Crops specialise in non-combinable crops such as forage, green cover, conservation mixtures and game cover. So what we have here today is a mixture of green manure crops. So obviously with the current agri-environment scheme we have a lot of growers that have been in that for the last 5 years. So we're just demonstrating some of the mixtures that can be used within that. Also we have some conservation crops, so we've got wild birdseed mixtures, pollinectors, short term and long term. So yeah, just to really get growers to have a look around and discuss the different options that they can use within the agri-environment scheme. If you take the green cover for instance, it's a great opportunity to be improving your soils, fixing nitrogen, and that's where I find that the agri-environment scheme is good for that, because you're getting paid to take land out of production. I think it's about £750 a hectare to establish a green cover crop. So it's a great way. Obviously we're in Scotland, so it's difficult after harvest to get a green cover crop in the ground quick enough. So a summer cover crop gives you that option to grow a lot of biomass, and using legumes also fix nitrogen. So it's just to encourage growers to utilise that, and also with EFA fallow, rather than leaving the land bare, there's the opportunity to grow wild birdseed mixtures or pollinector crops rather than just leaving the land bare. So you're also benefiting biodiversity, overall biodiversity, but also improving your soils. Well, to be honest, I've had a few growers on the stand today discussing that. It's quite interesting that we have all different types of methods to establish them. I have a couple of growers actually broadcasting into standing crops now, and quite successfully. So going forward, I think we maybe need to trial that a lot more. I know some growers are actually converting old sprayer booms into cover crop applicators, just to try and buy it. Obviously, we're in Scotland with later harvest, we just try and buy ourselves that extra 2 weeks to get the seed in the ground. But we've been working closely with the James Hutton Institute for the last 3-4 years on looking at different cover crop species and drill them early September, and it does have its benefits. Although we're not seeing a lot of biomass over the winter, but it's more what's going on below the ground as opposed to above, so more having a living root over winter.
So my name is Mark Ingalls and I work for Andy's Man Club. I'm a project development champion for Andy's Man Club. We're here trying to raise some awareness of who we are and what we do. We're a suicide prevention charity aimed at men to get men talking, because there's far too many suicides in the world today. We've had some really good conversations, really good interactions with a lot of different people, women and men that have come along and don't know who we are, which is brilliant because we're able to tell them who we are. We are, as I say, we're a suicide prevention group. We've got 33 clubs across the country, 30 in Scotland, and again it's to get men talking. It's to try and break that stigma of men's mental health. The reason it's so important to myself is I've used this club for exactly what it is. If it wasn't for this club I wouldn't be standing talking to you today. They literally saved my life and now I work for them, and I just want to give back and make sure that there's some place for men to go to when they are in that storm or they are struggling, that there's a club that can come along and just get that stuff off their chest. If you go to www.andysmanclub.co.uk, or if you want any information, it's info@andysmanclub.co.uk, and you can get all the information there on our website.
We're just wrapping up at the end of Arable Scotland today, so a successful day where we've had some really good conversations around adapting to a changing climate, about being profitable on lower inputs, and about the sort of changing direction of policy, with some really sort of immediate messages for farmers about, you know, just some of the simple things that can be done to reduce reliance on pesticides, incorporate more natural forms of nitrogen, so having legumes and beans in the rotation, good discussions around cover crops and their value to soil health. And that idea that actually we're already doing quite a bit in terms of integrated pest management plans, soil health plans and biodiversity plans with farmers, and there's just that bit more to do going forward. So some really good innovations here, everything from robots down to radishes and dirty roots, so something for everybody, I hope.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Stevenson from SAC Consulting, and today I'm bringing you the Rural Roundup. The weather has been very choppy over the last few weeks, and it has definitely made progress difficult. Some farmers are struggling to get on with harvest due to the bad weather, whilst others are struggling to find a long enough window to make silage. So it is a difficult time of year for some people. For the June census, there has been an extension to the deadline for completing your census. The deadline is now the 27th of August, so please do make sure you get it filled in plenty of time. Preparing for sustainable farming is funding which is available from the Scottish Government. I have spoken about it before, but it is important to try and take advantage of the funding whilst it's available. So this funding is available for this year and for next year, and it's a great way for you to start preparing your farm for future subsidies. So under preparing for sustainable farming, there's 3 different options. There is carbon audits, soil sampling and analysis, and animal health and welfare interventions. For the carbon audit, you will be required to complete a carbon audit through an approved carbon audit provider, and you will need mitigation measures from an FAS advisor. For the carbon audit, you receive a standard cost of £500 to go towards your carbon audit. It's definitely worth having a carbon audit done now, with a whole farm plan looking likely to be coming forward in 2025. If you've already got a baseline carbon audit, it puts you in good stead for the future. The soil sampling funding is available for getting your soil analysed. This could be from a traditional W-shaped pattern walked in your field, or for GPS soil sampling. There are requirements for the soil sampling. You need to have pH, pK and some kind of soil carbon test. So this could be loss of ignitions or Dumas test. For the soil sampling, you can calculate how much you can claim by finding out what Region 1 ground you claimed on your single application form this year. You're then able to multiply this by 0.2 to work out what 1/5 of the area is, and then you can multiply this by £30, and that will calculate how much you can claim for soil analysis. The first time you claim for soil analysis as well, you'll be able to claim an additional £250 for CPD. So this will give you a chance to spend time learning more about nutrient management. This is only the first time, so if you claimed it last year, you won't be able to claim it this year. The third option under preparing for sustainable farming is animal health and welfare interventions. So the animal health and welfare interventions are aimed to improve the health of your animals. So having a productive, healthy flock, it will require less vet intervention, and you're more likely to be able to reduce your carbon emissions because the animals are producing offspring for you to sell more efficiently. So there's 7 different options which you can choose from. There is bull fertility, there's looking at sheep iceberg diseases. In cattle, there's looking at calf respiratory issues. There is liver fluke, there's looking at roundworm, there's looking at sheep lameness or sheep scab. So for 7 interventions, you can select 2 from that list, and for each of the 2 you can claim £250, that's £500 in total. In addition, the first time that you claim for animal health and welfare interventions, there is an additional £250 available for CPD. So this is to learn more about your animal health and possible problems on your farm and what your options have been. So for preparing for sustainable farming, the year runs from the 1st of January 2023 through until the 31st of December 2023. And the claims window is open now and is open through until the end of February 2024. So claims can be made for soil sampling and carbon audits at present. The claims portal will be available later this year for the animal health and welfare intervention option. So for making your claims for the carbon audit and for the soil sampling, you will need to provide a copy of your invoice and proof of payment when you're making your claim. For the animal health and welfare interventions, this works slightly differently. You can get an expert advisor form off the Rural Payments and Services website and just ask your vet to fill in the details. So they'll be able to say which option that they went and looked at, what the results of this was, and what their recommended actions were following this. So you can submit that for your claim. You won't need to supply invoices or proof of payment for this. So make sure you claim by the 29th of February 2024. There is looking likely to be another year of preparing for sustainable farming running from the 1st of January 2024 through until the 31st of December. But you might as well take advantage of it this year to help get you set up for the future. Another way to get yourself organised and ready for 2025 and beyond, have a look on the Farm Advisory Service website under Advice and Grants. There is funding available for different things. So you can get an integrated land management plan, and for this you'll be able to get £1,200 of funding to go towards it. So this is an opportunity to get an advisor out onto your farm, discuss your business, have a look at your finances and be able to have an outside perspective on your business. There's also 13 different specialist advice plan options. So these advice plan options include succession planning, biodiversity audits and much more. So they're definitely worth having a look at. So for the specialist plans you can get £1,000 of funding and you can select up to 2 of the different specialist plans available. It's a great way to get your business future ready and get additional help and support in starting to move your farm forward into the future. Thank you for listening and we'll see you again next time.